There we go. All right. Let's call Parks Public Works meeting to order. Please note attendance of staff, mayor, and council members. Mr. Councilman Johnson online with us. With that, we will proceed on into the agenda. All right. That one's not doing me good. All right. Are there any members of the public, staff, or otherwise wishing to make comment before the committee as part of public comments? Please indicate with raising your hands, either physically or virtually. See, we have no attendees. Everybody is a panelist. Okay, seeing no hand raised, we'll move on from that to approval of the minutes. Approval of minutes dated, approval of minutes dated October 18th, 2022.
I move we approve.
Second, are there any adjustments or comments in regards to the minutes? Councilmember Benson?
Not for me.
All right, Councilmember Johnson?
I'm good.
All right. With that, we'll move on with the minutes approved as presented. Please note, even on the screen here, you need to zoom in on that for people to be able to read it. Let's move on to Agenda Bill 22-155, approval of purchase of required computer hardware and equipment for the rollout of Tyler Munis Enterprise Asset Management, Finance, and other related modules for Parks and Public Works staff. Mr. Chambliss, will you talk to this one?
Yes, sir. Good evening. So as council's aware, investment was made last year to switch to the Munis, Tyler Munis suite of government products. One of the modules that was purchased for Parks and Public Works is EAM, or Enterprise Asset Management. This is a great module. I've actually used it in a previous assignment I had. I actually implemented bringing it in to a previous department I was director of. And it really does change the whole way the department works. It eliminates a lot of time-consuming things that sometimes get missed. The computer automatically handles. It also increases efficiency and by that increases productivity. To do this, my staff will need some sort of interface device to be able to use the programs. Currently, the majority of my staff use a shared computer in the room. And that won't work for Munis. Each employee will need to have a computer pretty much with them in order to utilize the software to its maximum potential and worth. So what you have before you is a request to spend $184,000 on the required equipment to outfit my department with appropriate computers. Unfortunately, they need to be tough books due to the nature of our work, in order for staff to be able to use this in the field, in their vehicles, and at their desks. We are not asking for any new money to make this purchase. There is enough savings in the current budget allocation to be able to cover this cost. We're just asking for the purchasing authority from the council to be able to make this purchase prior to the end of the fiscal year.
In the original allocation of $1.8 million, was this equipment assumed as part of that?
It is my understanding it was not.
All right, so we have already committed $1.47 million of the 1.8. Do we have an estimate right now for what this project, I mean, I don't want to spend the money at first in, first out. I want to know that I have the money for the project that was allocated all the way through. And that there's extra money beyond that. So do we currently have an estimate for full project costs at end?
I'm gonna have to tag in budget manager Drew. Sorry, Drew.
No, thank you, Mike.
Finance question.
So in essence, that is something that we need to work on and deliver back to council. We have a $1.8 million project budget that you see here. We know through the CIP itself that we've allocated an additional $150,000 towards the project, which would increase the project budget up to $1.95 million. In addition to that, we're proposing some enhancements as a part of the overall budget, which could potentially increase that from 1.95 upwards. But I think a revision is critical at this point, given the work between the previous finance director as well as the previous IT director. We think there are some gaps in what that budget was back then, and something that we need to return back to the F&A committee and as well as the Parks and Public Works committee, if that's the case, and really kind of take a deep dive into how much this project is going to cost us overall over the long term to implement it.
I do,
Councilman or Mayor?
but there was an ongoing program of replacing all virtual computers because there were issues with them. And so besides this, there's just regular IT funding for computers, right?
Well, so the justification for this is largely to support the Parks and Public Works Department through the ERP implementation. Once we start expanding, in essence, they don't necessarily have an enterprise asset management module right now. This equipment will enable them to actually fulfill the needs of that enterprise asset management module and to actually utilize that as they proceed forward. And as a consequence, they're going to need additional equipment when they're out in the field, for example. And that's in essence what we're requesting. So it's above and beyond their current allocation, right, of laptops and desktops, for example. Mike can chime in if he wants to, but I think he currently believes that the amount of equipment that they have is currently insufficient, especially for what they're going to eventually be required to do in the field. And so consequently, he is proposing more than what he currently.
We have 8 virtual machines that this will be also replacing at the same time.
So you're saying that there are 8 machines that will be replaced by this, or that there are also 8 other machines that will need to be replaced? I didn't totally understand.
There are 8 machines that will be replaced with this purchase, and it also expands access to the full crew rather than the 8 machines, 4 of which are shared locations.
So of the 17 machines that are going to be purchased, 8 of them are replacement machines.
Correct. And one of the reasons why this is so critical is we are already behind the 8 ball for this project. Currently, staff is working to assemble the data that we're going to need to provide Tyler at the beginning of the program for this. And we're having to do it on paper because staff does not have access to even Excel without going into the lunchroom. And when you're in the field collecting data off machinery and wells and pump and serial numbers and GPS locations, etc., we don't have the laptops for them to take it out in the field to get it. So I've created forms that they're hand filling out, and now we're reducing a possibility of a transcription error in getting that data into a form of Excel, not to mention creating a massive data entry backlog just because we're not entering it natively into the program. So that combined with the lead times in this equipment and the fact that starting this week, we actually have Tyler classes occurring for the financial modules, which are going to go live soon, that we need access. We need to get the stuff ordered sooner rather than later.
And I'm not questioning that.
Yeah.
If we are doing sorry, if we are if we are getting the asset management module out of Tyler, and we were requiring you to do that, Angie, you need the equipment to do it. The question I'm approaching at this stage is, be aware most ERP systems never recoup the benefits that they state they're going to do. So, I mean, I need you guys as the leadership to look at it and make sure that we're getting what we thought out of this. And we're not just proceeding down the path of let's implement this, even though it may incur additional costs than what we thought into the organization. Okay. This is not an inexpensive piece of software, nor is an ERP implementation an inexpensive endeavor. So we got to make sure we're getting the benefit we thought we were going to get, and we're not just doing things because that's the full-blown solution out of Tyler. You had more comments?
Yeah, well, I'm here, and absolutely tell me if I'm hearing it wrong. I'm hearing Mr. Chambliss say that we need this and that it's going to make us a lot more efficient. And Mr. Chambliss's track record in being more efficient, I think, is stellar. So I am fully on board with believing that we need this, but I think I'm also hearing that when this was initially budgeted, some errors were made in budgeting.
So for example, this wasn't considered when that budget was crafted.
So the question is, it sounds like this is a tool that we need, but how do we square the circle and figure out how to make this work without not being able to complete the project because we ran out of funds?
Mhm. Correct. Right. So in essence, we are looking through the contract itself, seeing potentially where there are opportunities for us to reduce the amount of time and effort that we might require from Tyler in terms of the number of hours. We also have a contract with Barry Dunn, which is a kind of consultant for us to assist us behind the scenes as well. And we may be looking at that contract as well as something that may not necessarily be important for us right now. So we will continue to look at the budget overall, make sure that we could incorporate maybe some of these changes that we need to proceed forward, trying to make the implementation process as efficient as possible so we can get through it. But yes, it will be a challenge, and we do need to reassess what this project budget should look like, as Councilmember Holloway suggested.
I come from a hard industry. Okay. If it's not going out the door or it's not resulting in additional revenue, you haven't saved anything. You may be more efficient, but if you haven't, if you're not getting a higher utilization on the equipment than you were before, and you're offsetting that by not having to purchase equipment in the future, you haven't saved anything. Okay, you got great numbers, you're keeping track of everything, but again, you haven't saved anything. So again, that's just the industry I'm at. And it's not a fun place to be, so I'm sorry. Yeah.
But to that point, I think that we have seen multiple examples of this department figuring out ways to save us money and doing it really well. So I am inclined to believe Mr. Chambliss when he says that this is going to save us money, because I haven't had the experience yet of having him say this is going to save money and then it doesn't save us money. Right? I don't have that to fall back on to doubt it. So
No, but realize
I hear what you're saying.
Realize the preamble I just said,
Totally.
which really means
Yeah.
if you're telling me you're saving money, tell me what. Are you reducing staff? Are you offsetting eventual equipment purchases to later dates because of higher utilization, whatever? What's going out, or what additional revenue is coming in that represents that savings?
Well,
But
it's my experience that this actually defers adding of staff. By increasing the efficiency of the staff we have, we do not normally have to add bodies to cover additional workload. One of the most important aspects of this tool is when we get the data in there is actually the predictive ability of it to make sure that the equipment is being maintained appropriately, so we don't have as many breakdowns. Additionally, it allows us to have a whole nother layer of accountability on such work, even down to the fact that people are signing off on critical tasks on critical equipment. So we have a record that you know, someone greased the bearings on the grinder's motor on this date, if we identify that as the need. This tool doesn't, you know, generate funds. It's just an ability to have accountability. It's not a magic pill. And it does increase efficiency. I have used it in the past, but if that's not what we're looking to do, then we shouldn't purchase the module. Because without the equipment, the module is worthless.
Again, I'm not arguing about you getting the equipment. But if you're telling me this will, there's I'm forgetting terms, it's late at night. If there's offset costs in the future that there no staff increase, higher efficiency and equipment utilization and maintenance, then I ought to be able to see it in the long-term business plan that Drew shows me of my curve of expenses should have a slight tweak down.
It is my experience that does occur.
Then maybe we ought to have department commitments along that and incorporate that into the finance model. And we can get that expense curve tweaked down for the benefits we expect from implementing Tyler. Okay, that's a savings I can look at and say, yeah, there it is.
I peg you as a dollars and cents guy, right? In essence, you want to see, okay, if we're going to pay this X amount, you want to see this X amount reduced, right? For example, and you're looking for that specific number that says this is how much we're going to save on an annual basis proceeding forward.
If that's the justification for the action, yes.
You know, the narrative to you is kind of insufficient, right? It tells the story for the most part, but you want to see the dollar amount that's tied to that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think in government we necessarily disagree with you. We understand that it's difficult to price out public goods in comparison to public goods. We don't have things like sales necessarily that we can kind of attach things to. But I do understand what you're requesting, and I hope that we can get there.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Johnson, do you have any input?
Yeah, I was just curious if the idea behind this program to some degree is to improve efficiency of staff. I wonder if they could potentially be able to get to things that have been held up because of inefficiencies in technology. So maybe there are things that it'd be great if we could do, but we just never seem to get around to them because the staff keep getting held up by things, and this could potentially help relieve that pressure.
That has been my experience. This program eliminates a lot of this is Mike's term. This isn't, but running around. Employees will have in their hands on the device a PDF copy of the manual of whatever equipment they're working on, or the plans of the park where they're looking for the sprinkler lines, etc. So they don't have to come back to the shop and dig through the files looking for that materials. That's a huge time saver. If we get to the point where I'm sorry.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, so then I'm wondering if even if there wasn't necessarily a specific monetary savings, but there's just simply we're able to get to more stuff that our citizens would like our staff to get to, that as long as we aren't blowing the budget, that maybe that's still a worthy investment.
Any other comments, questions? I'm recommending approval, but given light, I'm recommending approval non-consent.
All right, well, we're gonna get complained at either way, so yeah.
You okay with moving forward non-consent, Councilman Johnson?
Yep, that sounds good.
Ah. Back to the top of the agenda. Thank you.
Non-consent, yeah.
And that is our agenda bills. We have a tentative discussion on the 23-24 biennial.
Non-consent.
Consent agenda.
So thank you, Chair. I think we had a lot of fun yesterday. Hopefully it was
Weird sense of fun.
yes. But I want to thank council, everyone here for their comments yesterday. We are working through those questions that council gave us. And we intend to return on next Monday, the budget roundtable, to have kind of continued discussions on that. We're happy to take any more questions that you may have, or if there's something simple that I could potentially answer for you, let me know tonight.
There might be a simple one, the trees question.
All right.
So we had
Good question. Yeah.
We
Mike
had
could be-
200,000 prior from, that was transferred out of the general fund over for trees on an annual basis. Serves me right?
No, so during this last budget cycle, we in essence moved the entire urban program out of the general fund and into the stormwater operations fund itself. So all the guys that you see are paid for out of stormwater. The urban forester, for example, Phil Bennett, he's paid for out of stormwater. We went through a King County report with council at that time. Then in essence said that the benefits that the urban forestry program provides to the stormwater system are pretty significant. And we thought there was a nexus there, which meant that stormwater fees were an appropriate source of revenue in order to pay for that service. Otherwise, we'd have more gray infrastructure that we'd have to build if we didn't necessarily have that forest around us that we have here today. In terms of the street trees themselves, we have an urban forestry capital program that we included as part of the CIP that council adopted August 8th, 2022. I'm just gonna try to find it really quickly here within our CIP document.
It's 1.6 million over 5 years.
Yeah, it's 1.6 million. So in essence, we would budget for 2023 and 2024 $448,000 over that biennium, basically to replace or provide for the care and maintenance of the urban forest, including street trees that show visible signs of damage, infestation, and other stressors. So this program will improve conditions for the urban forest, improve stormwater treatment, and reduce the cost of future street tree management and replacements. Because this is a capital program itself, it's been incorporated into the CIP, as I stated, and therefore incorporated into the utilities capital fund. So you're not going to necessarily see this capital program as a part of the stormwater operations fund, but in order to fund the utilities CIP, all the stormwater fee, a lot of stormwater fees, water fees and sewer fees are transferred from those operating funds into the capital fund in order to pay for these capital programs and projects. So in essence, what's the summary? We haven't missed on funding for street trees as a part of this budget. It's in there. We've got a CIP worksheet here. It's been incorporated into the utilities capital fund itself at roughly $448,000 for the biennium.
So I'm about to get one of those charts that Mayhew talks about. And we call them spaghetti charts. So prior I had streets in the general fund, or I had trees, I'm sorry, trees in the
We
general. fund.
did.
And we,
Stormwater was subsidizing the general fund at that time as well
okay,
for a portion of the urban forestry program.
okay, so some portion of that was already stormwater funded.
Yes,
We moved that totally under stormwater,
correct.
okay? We did have a line item for some figure amount for, again, I thought it was 200, maybe it was something else, but we had a line item for urban forestry under the general fund for some annual amount.
So it was minimal back then, so it may have supported, well, Phil's time, for example, that was supported. But in terms of actually having money set aside to replace street trees, there wasn't anything like that in the general fund at that time.
Yeah, I'm getting to this part of it.
And then we came back to council, especially around the time of the last budget cycle, basically, where we were also concurrently doing a utility rate study and said, here's a relationship and nexus that we find between stormwater and urban forestry. Therefore, we should incorporate the totality of urban forestry, also making sure that we have, money set aside for when we do need to replace street trees, which consequently, Phil has identified that SR1 has some street trees that were not planted correctly at the time, right? Most of them, right? And so he's charted a course for the most part to try to get us through that. Consequently, we have developed this urban forestry improvement program, which is part of the CIP to address those issues with the street trees in Snoqualmie Ridge 1.
Does it include a time machine?
Unfortunately, no. Yeah. Would be nice, but yes. And so,
Because there's some other things I'd like to
yes.
do.
Pete, this is one of live and learn. And we kind of learned in Snoqualmie too to ask for better planting of trees and what's done in Snoqualmie 1.
So I think we've got this program basically kind of where we want it right now. Phil may have to come back and say, okay, how's this going? What's the time in which we're actually going to complete the replacement of the street trees? Is that sufficient or not? You may need to request more money in the future. I don't know. But in essence, we've set up a capital improvement or program to try to handle our street tree issue on the ridge itself. And we have budgeted for that as part of this biennial budget moving forward at $448,000.
Yeah, understood all that. I'm still
Spaghetti? Yeah.
well. Again, urban forestry was in general fund, partially funded by wastewater utility,
Stormwater utility.
storm.
Mhm.
Sorry. Storm, we moved it to, so say it was 60-40 for just rails numbers, 60% funded by the utility, 40% funded by general fund. We move it over under utilities. That 40%, which was prior general fund funded,
Mhm.
is now available for other expenditures?
Well, so that was a previous budget cycle, right? So we had dealt with that at the time. We didn't have to reduce our expenditures as much as we would have if we did not make if we didn't make that move, we would have had to reduce our expenditures by more or cut more from this last budget cycle, basically. So it helped to alleviate some of that pressure to the point where we only had to eliminate in the general fund, I believe at least 2 FTEs, for example. Otherwise, with that lack of support, the additional $200,000+ that this stormwater was subsidizing the general fund back then, that would have been maybe an extra position that we would have had to cut from the budget or so, right? For example, so it helped to alleviate some of that pressure. At the same time, that urban forestry was incorporated into the utility rate study, which is what we were also managing through at that time as well, going through that process. And so that was built into that utility rate study, which required increases in the stormwater fees, basically, to accommodate that.
I remember now. We're playing history. Any additional questions?
No, this is, I remember him talking about this, or either him or Mike talking about this a while back, or maybe it was Phil. So this is coming back to me.
All right, Councilman Johnson, any questions?
Nope, that was the last thing that I had for now, for Parks and Public Works.
All right, and the rest of them, you guys it was just last night, so I assume you're working on them. I'm not gonna go deeper until you guys are ready to come back with a question or with an answer. All right. With that, I'll close out discussion on the biennial budget at this stage, and we can get into it as the data develops. Thank you. Any other matters before the committee tonight? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move that.
Second.
Second. Are there any objections to adjournment? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, Mike.
Good meeting.